Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and I have a passion for empowering others to take responsibility for their careers. Yes, I've written several books on owning your career and am loving hosting this podcast. This podcast is for you if you're willing to make a shift to the driver's seat in your career. We feature leaders who inspire, empower, and motivate you for consistent career action for results. Please continue to join us every Sunday when a new episode is released. Let's get into this week's show. Hi there, it's Simone Morris back with you for the 13th season of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm delighted to be with you for this new season. I can't even believe that it's been 13 seasons. I must admit there have been times when I've thought, should I still do the podcast? And I want to tell you that your encouragement allows me to continue to do the podcast. So I took this break over the summer, and I received an email today from someone telling me that they had been listening to the show and that it had picked them up during downtime. And that is confirmation for me that it's not time to close the chapter for this podcast. I remain passionate about empowering you to take control of your careers, to take ownership of your career, to get in the driver's seat for your career. Believe me, many things happen in the workplace that can cause you to take your hands off the wheel, so to speak. And I want to encourage you to stay focused and to stay intentional, to stay strategic when it comes to owning your career. Trust me, you will be proud of the results at the end state. I know because I've experienced that firsthand. And I will say that I always say that if you've read any of my books, The Power of Owning Your Career or the 52 Tips for Owning Your Career, you'll know that I talk about the story of a boss telling me that my career is my responsibility. Actually, my boss said, Simone, your career is your responsibility. And I said, okay, because I was ready to receive that message at that time. And I did receive that message, quite frankly. It was time for me to receive that message because my hand had been off the wheel for far too long. So I say that to say that's part of my journey towards the podcast and also towards coaching, because I bring those lived experiences to my coaching clients or to my coaching studio. Can't think of a word that I want to say right now. At any rate, it's good to be back, really good to be back. No, it's great to be back. I'm excited for you to experience the season ahead. What Simone been up to career-wise, I have been working passionately an audiobook that I must admit I have been a bit obsessive about in terms of making sure it feels really right before I release it into the world. And this will be of interest to you because it's about 52 tips for owning your career. I'm turning that into an audiobook and it's sounding really terrific. So I hope that you will support me in picking up a copy of that on Audible when it becomes available in the near future. I will be sure to share when it's available. The other thing that I have done is create a domain, inspire, affirm you in the driver's seat. So the new domain that we'll be using for the podcast is getinthedriverseat.com. Let me repeat that again, getinthedriverseat.com. That is inspiration to remind us all of the importance of being in the driver's seat. So when you think about the driver's seat, I wonder how you are pouring into yourself regularly. One example of that is how are you affirming yourself? How are you affirming your brilliance? Are you telling yourself the right message? Are you telling yourself what a good job you're doing? Is there evidence of the good work that you're doing? I was reminded earlier today to really stroll back to my success wall. I created this mixed tiles wall that has pictures of key moments in my career on that wall. And I glance at it, but I don't take the time to go and soak up the energy of that wall. And I was reminded today of the importance of doing so. My plan is to create even more pictures that I can add to my success wall because a lot has happened since I first created it. I want to create more pictures to put up there. And then I also want to set an intention to really remind myself of what I'm capable of. And I wonder about you. Are you thinking about what are you capable of? What have you achieved thus far? I was reminded that I'm looking forward at what I have yet to achieve. And perhaps it's time to take a stroll backwards and look at what I have achieved so that I can move forward. And I must admit, the idea made me excited because there's many things that have happened in the year 2024 that I take for granted. That's pretty awesome. So I'm looking forward to what's ahead in the coming year. I'm also focused on knowing that we're rounding out the second half of this year and that it's really important to set intentions, set goals for the coming year. What do you want to do in your career? What do you want to achieve? Who do you want to work with? Who do you want to mentor you? Who do you want as a sponsor to help you grow in your career? These are things that you should be giving some thoughts too, giving some space and reflection to really think about what do I want? What's next for me in my career? Even if you continue to do the job that you're doing, what are the experiences that you want to have in the current role that you are in? That's important to think about. And I want you to think about working with your managers and your HR teams if you're inside of corporate walls. You want to be thinking of and building key strategic relationships. So know that forming a relationship with HR business partner, as an example, is a good thing to do. Also thinking about relationships with other leaders and even your peers. What relationships need improvement? What boundaries do you need to put in place for your career that's potentially missing? Are you owning your calendar as well as your career? Sometimes our calendars can get ahead of us and sort of lose control with the calendar thing because other people are putting invites on the calendar. So I want you to think about your calendar and be intentional about what's on your calendar and allowing space on your calendar, allowing time for you to own your career. So how about this? How about we put 2 time blocks on the calendar to get in the driver's seat and just create an hour, if you will, 2 hours a week to get in the driver's seat. Put that on your calendar and then spend that time being really intentional about growing your career. I suspect if you do that by the end of the year or even a month, 30, 90 days out, you're going to see some big differences. I'd love to know how that goes for you. So do drop me a line at pooyc@simonemorris.com. Also remember you can find me by going to the getinthedriverseat.com website and you'll be able to gain information about the show. It is exciting to be back. I hope you've had a terrific break. I hope you're amped up to really double down on growing and advancing in your career. I'd love to hear about your professional development plans and what's ahead and what's exciting you about the new season. Stay tuned for some great episodes ahead, and I look forward to connecting and engaging with you a lot more during this new season. Thanks so much for staying with us for 13 seasons. And if you're new, welcome to the show. I am pleased to meet you. You can definitely find out more information about me on LinkedIn or, like I said, the website getinthedriverseat.com. And I'm excited about the season ahead. Lots of great new episodes and me being excited about the guests and the knowledge that they're sharing. Be sure to write down the tips that our guests are sharing and apply them to your career. Try not to be overwhelmed by everything that's being shared, but do know that if you just take one nugget from each episode, it is going to make such a difference for you. The other thing I want you to be working on is your formula. I've got an 8-step formula for owning your career, and I'm going to look at that formula again and see what tweaks are necessary. Each guest that comes on the show has their own take on what the formula is for owning their careers. I want you to have your own formula for owning your career. Pick up tips and create a formula so that you can be working that formula to get the results you seek. Again, I want to hear about it, so feel free to drop me a line at pooyc@simonemorris.com. And I look forward to engaging with you this season. Enjoy season 13 and be sure to drop me a line or go on social media and post comments from the episodes and let us know how you're doing. Let us know how you're enjoying the episodes. Be sure to tag it at hashtag POOYC. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of the podcast.
I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this week's empowering career story on the podcast. If you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure that you are subscribing and that you rate and review the podcast. It's so important as we continue to spread the word of career empowerment. In addition, you can head over to the LinkedIn platform and join the Power of Owning Your Career discussion group. There you can have access to the guests who have been on the podcast, as well as others listening to the podcast, as well as myself, where we can continue the conversation. I hope to see you on that platform. You can also email me at pooyc@simonemorris.com if you have a suggestion for guest or a message that you want me to hear personally. Thanks so much, and make it an inspiring, empowering week in your career.